I'll just remind you, you're under oath, and we had a whistleblower here last night. Did you send any communication before the investment committee asking the status of that project to management?
Having conflict of interest or potential conflict of interest.
I understand.
This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Last meeting was interrupted abruptly due to technical difficulties, but I know that for a lot of members on this committee, it was on your Christmas wish list that we meet again before the end of the year, so that's nothing short of a Christmas miracle. We are back for another meeting, so I'm happy to see you all. And so for that, Madame Verschuren, we thank you for being here. And members, we'll just start where we left off at the last meeting. So Mr. Sorbara was asking questions to the witness. He had about 3 minutes left, and without further ado, I'll let Mr. Sorbara resume his questions. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. Going right into it, Mr. Verschuren, can you please explain to the committee what happened at the last meeting with the issues on technology front, please?
Yes, absolutely, and I apologize. I really do, to the Chair and to all the committee members. My computer froze, and I was working with Francis, who's a tech with this standing committee.
So the Verschuren Center, since you became the Green Slush Fund's chair, has received $11.2 million in taxpayer money from other Liberal government departments. My understanding from looking at what you said is it incubates green technology companies and has some companies of its own. The companies that it incubates, do you have a financial interest in any of them?
No, zero. I don't have any financial interest in the Verschuren Center. I don't have any financial interest in any of the companies that work with the Verschuren Center.
Do any of the STDC Green Slush Fund directors have a financial interest in any of those companies?
I don't think so. I can check that though for you, but I'd appreciate that. So.
If you could check and just send it in writing, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I will.
So you obviously have read the Act for the Liberal Green Slush Fund of Parliament, the SDTC Act.
Yes.
And you know what Section 16.2 states?
Not off the top of my head.
No member should profit or gain any income from the foundation or its activities. Also, as a public office holder during your time, you are subject to the Canadian Conflict of Interest Act for public office holders. Have you read that act?
Yes.
It says that no public office holder shall exercise their duty to further their private interests or those of their family and friends. When you and fellow directors André-Lise Matteau, Stephen Kukucha, and Guy Humet voted $3.7 million of COVID relief for companies that you have financial interest in, is that not furthering your private interests?
Well, in the case of the Enerstore project, this is a project, right? And the way these things work is that you set up a limited partnership. And so this limited partnership...
I don't need to... I didn't ask... Look, with respect, I have limited time. I have limited time. And it's easier if you actually answer my question. I don't need an explanation of the corporate structure of Enerstore. It was a simple question. When you voted the money for Enerstore and Hydrostore, which you have financial interest in, and the other directors,
financial interest in
the other directors and their interest in their companies, is that not furthering your personal interest? That's all I want an answer to, yes or no.
It certainly is not advancing my personal interest, no.
When you own shares in a company and you're the major shareholder of Enerstore, CEO, and when it receives money from the government, that does not benefit your ownership?
In the case of the money that came to the $217,000 that came to Enerstore, it went into a limited partnership. That money was put into the assets of that Goderich.
You are the major
compressed air
shareholder.
Energy storage.
Of which you are the major
Compressed air
shareholder.
energy storage.
When the board voted to give $10.7 million in grants to companies your fellow director, Stephen Kukucha, had a financial interest in, was that not personal gain for him? $10.7 million in companies he is an investor in?
These companies invest in projects, and these projects are all high-risk, innovative project that really...
My question, he has a
pushes
financial
hard.
interest in those companies, and you voted $10.7 million for them. I'll go on to the next one. When you voted $3.8 million in grants for your fellow director, Guy Ouimet, was that not furthering his personal interests? He had a financial interest in a company that you gave grants to.
These board members invest in the future of our country. We invest in the future
Yes or no?
of
When
new technology.
you voted $42.5 million in grants to 7 companies that your fellow director, Andre Lise Mateau, owns in, was that not furthering her personal interests?
These investments are made to further the opportunities in the Canadian clean tech industry.
Interest of these
Mr. Perkins, if you
directors.
can please let the witness at least just give a little room for an answer, that would be appreciated.
With the
Madame
yes or no,
Madame
that would make
Verschuren,
it
the
helpful.
floor is yours.
So the Canadian clean tech industry is extraordinarily important for the future of our country. We have, I want to remind the members that 12 of the top 100 global companies are Canadian companies. 10 of them were supported by SCTC. And
companies, thank you.
Madame Verschuren, I'll let you finish your thought. Mr. Perkins, you're out of time on this. Madame Verschuren.
The important point I'd like to make is that the clean tech sector it's great growth opportunities in Canada, and we really need to grow them. In the United States, they have ARPA. They have different ways in which they invest in new technology and clean technology. We have got to compete with that, and we are punching above our weight. We really are, and it's a lot to do with what STTC is doing. And so that, to me, is what's critical. We're making our companies, our investments are being made to further these technologies, and this is normal course business.
Thank you, Madame Verschuren. I'll now move to Mr. Van Bynen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Follow up with regards to the board process here. So in your time frame, quite literally, if say for example one of your submissions was in at the board, you already knew it was in, so you don't need the paperwork on it at all. But you would then leave the room, the board would vote, and then you just come back in, and that would be the process. That would be followed.
In the case of I want to be clear, honorable member, that there was not one project in my 4.5 years as chair that I have invested in that came to the table, except for the project that happened in 2017. That was the compressed air project. Okay, I want to make that very clear. But I declared perceived relationships always, because I am the chair and I recognize that I have a greater responsibility.
That's actually normal procedure from all the boards I've served on, because if you have family members, friends, or whatever, you do that because perception is equality to that of actual direct conflict.
Exactly, but
I'm just surprised that only the chair would be following that. Like, if you're suggesting other board members weren't following that? No,
they do, but I was sometimes criticized for, not criticized, but comments saying that, Annette, that you don't have to declare that, but I did anyway. Okay, these are people that I know that were related to a project, etc. And but that was done before letters would go out to the board, projects would be described, partnerships would be detailed, and so the board members would then have to declare whether there's a conflict. And those board members would never get that information, right? They wouldn't see the analysis done by SDTC. They would recuse themselves when a decision's being made at the board.
But they all don't know it's happening, and you're in the same room. I mean, like, just be admitted. And then they'd have to, like, so I'm just trying to walk me through this. So they wouldn't know what you're saying, but they would know from the beginning, because they'd have to recluse themselves. So they knew that it was up at that meeting, and then
Yes.
then they would all go to that meeting, and then when it came up, then somebody would just leave and then come back. And
That's correct. What would happen is that the people that declared the conflict, the project would be at the board level. The vice president of investments would be making a recommendation. Those people would leave. We would all leave that meeting when that discussion happened and that decision was made. And then we'd be invited back to come in once the decision was made. We wouldn't know what that decision was until the SDTC would announce those decisions the next day.
okay, that's fair enough. Do you know from all those decisions of conflict how many were actually refused and how many were actually granted, that members had conflicts in during your time of process there?
In the case of
Just in general, it'd be interesting. Maybe I'll just pass that question to the chairs. Maybe we can find out is how many conflict of interest that board members declared were either accepted or rejected from the process. That might help clean it. And I appreciate your testimony today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Massé. Your question is duly noted and will be passed to SDTC. Je passerai la parole à Monsieur Barrett pour 5.
Mr. Barrett for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Ma'am, during your opening statement, you said that all companies were treated equally in their payments through your COVID scheme in 2020 and 2021, but some companies received a 5% increase in funding and others received a 10% increase in funding. So that seems to me both to be unequal, but it also demonstrates that your opening statement is factually incorrect. And this decision that was taken to increase those fundings to those companies benefited you in a very real way. And not only did you move the motion, you voted in favor of it, and all of the votes taken were unanimous. How long were these meetings? So the meeting of March 23rd, 2020, where you voted to give yourself, your company, $111,485. How long was that meeting in duration?
I don't recall, but I can find out for you.
I'm happy to jog your memory with the minutes. It was 1 hour. The meeting of Tuesday, March 9th, 2021, where you voted to your benefit, $106,176. How long was that meeting, ma'am?
I don't recall, but do you have it?
I do. It was an hour. So in what amounts to a lunch break for most people, you benefited $111,485 in one occurrence, and then a year later, an equal amount of time. In another lunch break, you voted to your benefit $106,176. Is it still your contention that though some companies were given a 5% increase and others a 10% increase, that all companies were treated equally?
What happened, I think at the first round, it was 5% across the board, honorable member. And I think in the second round, the management team identified some companies that were identified in their analysis and developed these milestones that indicated that if they could be given a little more money, the 10%, that would really help accelerate and sustain those businesses. And it was done.
Okay.
It was work done internally, and
Right.
so that. But I want to clarify one thing: is that the project that Enerstor was involved with, the Godrich project, got the 5%, I think, each time, and I want to make sure of that. And
That was not your
money-
but that was not your testimony, ma'am. You testified that they were all treated equally, and 5% and 10% are not equal numbers, and neither was the amount of money. Neither was the amount of money that was paid out. There are 229 companies in the SDTC portfolio, according to your testimony at the Ethics Committee. The RCGT report sampled only 22 companies and found $40 million in misappropriated funds. The whistleblower that testified identified up to $150 million in misappropriated funds. Are you confident that Canada's Auditor General will find that there were $0 in misappropriated funds at the $1 billion Green Slush Fund?
I think, the Auditor General will find that their processes and procedures and discipline that we have in investing in the clean tech sector is second to none. As a matter of fact, that due diligence done by SDTC is often used by BDC, EDC, and other organizations in Ottawa because of the level of excellent work that they do. There's 80 people that work there that really understand this area of the business, the clean tech sector, and they're experts.
I have less than a minute left, ma'am. Your answer was not that they would find $0. You testified that you followed all ethics rules, that you have been that you've been following the highest standard. Have you been cleared of having violated the Ethics Act by the Nonpartisan Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner? And if so, I'd be interested to hear that. And if not, how can you be sure that you didn't break ethics laws?
If you're referring to the ethics investigation that is going on today, for me, that is underway, right? We're in the process of reviewing that.
So you can't be sure that you didn't break ethics laws?
I am sure that I didn't break ethics laws.
The commissioner remains unsure, or you would have been cleared formally, right?
But the commission, the application hasn't been received by the commissioner yet. I'm putting together the documentation to give that assurance and to have that discussion happen. That has not happened. No.
Merci, Monsieur Barrett. Madame.
Ms. Verschuren, on the COVID payments, management's original intent was to fund the companies that were pre-revenue and had an analysis done of their run rate of their cash, how much cash they would have left, and only fund those that were in trouble. Is that not correct?
There were occasions when projects would be proposed by companies that were making revenue, right?
That wasn't my question, though. Please, would you answer my question? The original proposal was to fund only those companies that were pre-revenue that had a cash flow issue. Yes or no?
I don't think that was the only criteria, no.
You don't believe that? Well, management has told me that, and we'll have some management here perhaps in the future. The claim you made was all of these were going to companies that needed the cash. Like some of them had 100 months of cash on hand. Others, like Canfor Pulp, a very profitable global company, got almost $700,000 of COVID relief money. Could Canfor Pulp not have applied, and all your revenue companies, for CEBA and not have the Green Slush Fund fund them?
This was like, I don't have the details, but this was likely a project that was a clean tech project, either in the management of forests or the improvement of all the things that we're doing to.
I didn't ask what the project was about. I have the list, and the list says you gave them $652,500 in March of 2020. They weren't struggling for revenue. I'll move on. I don't understand why you're giving massive global companies COVID money and why you thought you had to bail it out when the government already was.
Yes, Mr. Perkins, I'm sorry, there was a point of order.
Chair, this has happened a few times, and it just happened again. The witness is trying to give an answer, and she's cut off. So if we could just have the witness give that full answer, I think it would benefit the committee. I'm not here as a full member. I'm substituting today, but I think that's just basic decorum.
Yes, Mr. Fargascados, you are correct. Mr. Perkins, it's important, out of fairness, to let the witness answer, and I would let Madame Verschuren maybe take a...
On that point of order,
Yes, Mr. Perkins.
if the witness will actually answer the question, these are simple questions. She's a sophisticated business person. She understands what cash flow, balance sheet, and income statements are. She can answer the question without trying to explain to us what the company is or what the project is. That has never been the question. And so in limited time, I would appreciate that she actually answer the question, or I will continue to try and get her back on subject.
Okay, Mr. Perkins, I'll let you continue with the 2 minutes and 13 seconds you have left, but I would appreciate that you let some time for the witness to answer for your further questions. So go ahead, Mr. Perkins.
So I will move on. Andrew Noseworthy, the ADM at the industry department, sat in all your board meetings. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what was his role in sitting in the board meeting? What would he do? Would he participate at all?
He was an observer. Yes, he would participate and talk more about updates at ISED, etc. But he saw all the proceedings of the boards.
And did he make reports back either to his boss, the Deputy Minister Simon Kennedy, or the minister about what was happening?
I'm not sure.
Or did you ever have some conversations with him about the role of SDTC and the relationship with the government and their priorities outside of those meetings?
Yeah, on occasion, I did speak with him. Yes, he and I would talk on the telephone, and and we would talk about proceedings, etc. And
relay any of that? Would he say he was relaying that or talking to the deputy, or it would get reported back at all?
He didn't talk to me about that, and he like we talked a lot about during the time that I was there, we got increased funds because the performance of STTC was doing so well. We got an additional amount of funds.
Understand that you got an additional $750 million, I think it was 35 months ago.
That's correct. That's correct. So it was big topics like that.
I'm sorry, I have limited time. Did you personally ever have chats with anyone in the minister's office or the minister at any time as chair about the fund?
The minister's office?
Minister.
Or the minister? Is that the question?
Yes. Did you ever talk to them about the fund?
No. Not the minister's
with the minister?
office, no.
Or the minister?
Not with the minister, no.
Even though you were at a number of presentations and announcements with the minister on STTC funding, you never talked to him about the business of the fund?
Look, he was extraordinarily interested, and I love his energy, in the performance of the entrepreneurs. And so that's what we spent our time with. And so he would come to the meetings and we would celebrate entrepreneurs and we would make announcements together.
He's big on photo ops. I agree he's big on photo ops.
Thank you very much, Mr. Perkins.